Welcome back. We're at the Republican presidential candidates debate. We're at Dartmouth College in Hanover, New Hampshire. And we're pleased now to turn it around a bit and have the candidates question each other. They will each have 30 seconds to pose an answer. We'll have 1 minute to respond, 30 seconds for a question, 1 minute to respond. They'll proceed in alphabetical order. I want you to remember, as we talk about this, we're talking about the economy, or those things that affect the economy. Beginning in alphabetical order, Congresswoman Bachmann.
Thank you. Well, in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan produced an economic miracle. And while all of us were wishing and yearning for a third term for Ronald Reagan, Governor Perry, you were campaigning and co-chairing Al Gore's election campaign for President of the United States. You went on to increase spending in Texas by over 50%, and you financed that spending by increasing bond debt by over 137%. That's exactly what Barack Obama has been doing, increasing debt by trillions of dollars. How can we trust you to not go down the Obama way and overspend and pay for that spending with indebtedness on the backs of the next generation?
Well, I, like most people in the state of Texas and in those southern states, grew up a Democrat. Michael Reagan and I were talking just the other day, Charlie, that I came to the Republican Party sooner in age than his dad, Ronald Reagan, did. And let me just address this issue of the debt in the state of Texas. Texas has the 6th lowest debt per capita. When I started as the governor back in 2000, and today Texas has the 2nd lowest debt per capita in the United States. I think that's what America's looking for as a president of the United States that understands how to balance budgets, how to deal with the spending issue, and how to get Americans back working again.
Herman Cain, question.
Yes. One of my guiding principles has been and will always be surround yourself with good people. The 999 plan that I have proposed is simple, transparent, efficient, fair, and neutral. My question is to Governor Romney. Can you name all 59 points in your 160-page plan, and does it satisfy that criteria of being simple, transparent, efficient, fair, and neutral?
Herman, I've had the experience in my life of taking on some tough problems. And I must admit that simple answers are always very helpful, but oftentimes inadequate. And in my view, to get this economy going again, we're going to have to deal with more than just tax policy and just energy policy, even though both of those are part of my plan. And the other parts of my plan are these. One is to make sure that we stop the regulatory creep that's occurred in Washington. And all of the Obama regulations we say no to, we put a halt on them and reverse all of those that cost jobs. Number two, we have trade policies that open up new markets to American goods. And I lay out a number of things I do in that 59 points that open up more markets to American goods. And we, of course, stop the cheating that goes on. We also have to have the rule of law. By that I mean you can't have the federal government, through its friends at the National Labor Relations Board, saying to a company like Boeing that you can't build a factory in a non-union state. That's simply wrong and violates the principle of the rule of law. We also have to have institutions that create human capital. We're a capitalist system. But we don't just believe in physical capital or financial capital, also human capital. We need great schools, great institutions. Finally, you got to have a government that doesn't spend more money than it takes in. Those are the 7 major pillars of those 59.
So no, it's not simple, is what you're saying.
Let me tell you, to get this economy restructured fundamentally, to put America on a path to be the most competitive place in the world to create jobs, is going to take someone who knows how to do it. And it's not 1 or 2 things. It's a good number of things to get America started.
All right. Speaker Gingrich, question.
Well, Governor Romney, let me say, first of all, there's an awful lot in your plan that's very good and that I think would be very helpful if implemented, a lot better than what Obama's doing. But one of the characteristics of Obama in his class warfare approach has been to talk about going after people who made over $250,000 a year and divide us. And I was a little surprised, I think it's about page 47 of your plan, that you have a capital gains tax cut for people under $200,000, which is actually lower than the Obama model. Now, as a businessman, you know that you actually lose economic effectiveness if you limit capital gains tax cuts only to people who don't get capital gains. So I'm curious, what was the rationale for setting an even lower base mark than Obama had?
Well, the reason for giving a tax break to middle-income Americans is that middle-income Americans have been the people who've been most hurt by the Obama economy. The reason you're seeing protests, as you indicated, in Wall Street and across the country, is middle-income Americans are having a hard time making ends meet. Not only do we have 25 million people out of work or stop looking for work or in part-time jobs needing full-time employment, we just saw this week that median income in America has declined by 10% during the Obama years. People are having a hard time making ends meet. And so if I'm going to use precious dollars to reduce taxes, I want to focus on where the people are hurting the most, and that's the middle class. I'm not worried about rich people. They're doing just fine. The very poor have a safety net. They're taken care of. But the people in the middle, the hardworking Americans, are the people who need a break, and that's why I focused my tax cut right there.
Governor Huntsman.
Since this discussion is all about economics, Governor Romney, I promise this won't be about religion. Sorry about that, Rick. Since some might see you, because of your past employment with Bain Capital, as more of a financial engineer, somebody who breaks down businesses, destroys jobs as opposed to creating jobs and opportunity, leveraging up, spinning off, enriching shareholders. Since you were number 47 as governor of the state of Massachusetts, where we were number 1, for example, and the whole discussion around this campaign is going to be job creation. How can you win that debate given your background?
Well, my background is quite different than you described, John. So the way I'll win it is by telling people an accurate rendition of what I've done in my life. And fortunately, people in New Hampshire living next door have a pretty good sense of that. They understand that in the business I was in, we didn't take things apart and cut them off and sell them off. We instead helped start businesses. And they know some of the names. We started Staples. We started the Sports Authority. We started Bright Horizons Children's Centers. Heck, we even started a steel mill in a farm field in Indiana. And that steel mill operates today and employs a lot of people. So we began businesses. Sometimes we acquired businesses and tried to turn them around, typically effectively, and net created tens of thousands of new jobs. And I'm proud of the fact that we were able to do that. That's a big part of the American system. People are not going to, in my opinion, are not going to be looking for someone who's not successful. They want someone who has been successful and who knows how fundamentally the economy works. Look, I would not be in this race had I spent my life in politics alone. Nothing wrong with that, of course. But right now, with the American people in the kind of financial crisis they're in, they need someone who knows how to create jobs, and I do.
All right, Congressman Paul.
Since the Federal Reserve is the engine of inflation, creates the business cycle, produces our recessions and our depressions, the Federal Reserve obviously is a very important issue. And fortunately tonight we have a former director of the Federal Reserve at Kansas City. So I have a question for Mr. Cain. Mr. Cain, in the past you've been rather critical of any of us who would want to audit the Fed. You said you've used pretty strong terms that we were ignorant and that we didn't know what we were doing, and therefore there was no need for a Fed audit anyway, because if you had one you're not going to find out everything because everybody knows everything about the Fed. But now that we have found and we've gotten an audit, we have found out an awful lot on how special businesses get, bailed out. Wall Street, the banks, and special companies, foreign governments. And you said that you advise those of us who are concerned, and you belittled, you say, call up the Federal Reserve and just ask them to get a PR person. So do you still stick by this, that this is frivolous, or do you think it's very important? 64% of the American people want a full audit of the Fed on a regular basis.
Mr. Cain.
First of all, you have misquoted me. I did not call you or any of your people ignorant. I don't know where that came from.
I'll get it for you.
All right? Now, so you got to be careful of the stuff that you get off the internet, because that's just not something that I have said. Secondly, when I served on the board of the Federal Reserve in the 1990s, we didn't do any of the things that this Federal Reserve is doing. I don't agree with the actions of this Federal Reserve. I don't agree with the actions that have been undertaken by Ben Bernanke. We didn't have a $14 trillion national debt to prop up with some of the actions that they're taking. And I have also said, to be precise, I do not object to the Federal Reserve being audited. I simply said, if someone wants to initiate that action, go right ahead. it doesn't bother me. So I've been misrepresented in that regard. I don't have a problem with the Federal Reserve being audited. It's simply not my top priority. My top priority is 999. Jobs, jobs, jobs.
Governor Perry, question for
Governor Romney, your chief economic advisor, Glenn Hubbard,